Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching this Thursday night in-depth ag forecast brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions. Well, ahead of a discussion about Ian, I would like to just take a moment and step back and say, what has September given us so far? So this is the month-to-date precipitation ranks by climate district, and you can see that much of the midsection of the country here has been quite dry, especially as of late. Of course, we did have that cutoff flow that set over parts of Northern California early last week, that did move into the Intermountain West, and that's some of the reason why the precipitation stats are higher here. But drier in the Pacific Northwest, drier throughout much of the plains and southeast. But what we're going to be watching here is what's left of Ian pulling into what's been quite dry over parts of Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia. So we're going to take a look at that in just a few seconds. But first thing I'm going to do is just kind of show you what was going on here. So if we just rewind back the clock over the last 2 weeks, there's been a large ridge that's sat right here in the midsection of the country. So we're looking here at the anomalous winds at the jet stream level, so different from normal. We've had that big cutoff low that came through here, but overall the flow pattern has been something like this across much of the United States for the last at least 2 weeks. And as a result of that, our last 2-week precipitation pattern really reflects the drier conditions. So there are some places from southern plains to the mid-south and all the way along the Gulf Coast up into parts of the mid-Atlantic and New England that haven't measured precipitation in the month of September. And there's some drier pockets throughout the western Corn Belt as well. So I'm just providing this context here because we're going to ask ourselves, how much longer are harvest windows going to stay open across a big section of the country? Where are we going to see the heaviest rains from Ian hitting some of the driest places? And then at the end of this video, when we talk about the longer range, what does it mean for the western United States as we start to really see some movement in the MJO? Those are going to be some major themes in this video. So let's just add one more piece to this, actually 2 more pieces to this. First, the latest soil moisture data. Now this was through this morning at 7 a.m. So we're looking at 16-inch soil moisture. So we can really see the drier soils that are here in the midsection of the country where we've really just not had flow open up to the Gulf to deliver a lot of rainfall as of late. You can also see how dry things have been here as well. A lot of the flow coming along the shore, blowing offshore, rather than returning quite a bit of moisture. But lately, of course, the heavy rains from Ian have just put a tremendous amount of water across Florida, and we're going to see a lot of that rain hit this area. The second piece to this is going to be our latest drought monitor. So this was released this morning. We still see, of course, a substantial portion of our country in drought. So the big questions about the way this drought monitor will evolve over the next 3 to 6 months will all be about La Niña, which typically produces a jet stream pattern like this, versus El Nino, which tends to split the jet stream and give a stronger subtropical component. Now, if we do see the evolution of a subtropical jet stream this fall, winter, or next spring, it will really go a long way in eroding the drought issues we see across the country. That's going to be the number one thing we're going to watch. But just something to show you here, when we go back and look at the change maps, just the week-to-week change, you can see that because of that larger ridge that's just sat in this area, we've seen a 1-class degradation across a broad section here of the United States. We've had a dry fall, and this has helped a lot of folks get a lot of harvest done. It's helped a lot of the crop dry down in the middle part of the country. We just want to ask, how much longer is that going to last? So over the last 72 hours, of course, the focal point for rainfall has really been down here across Florida. I'll zoom in on that in just a second. But I would like to point out the deeper trough that brought in the frost events through parts of the upper Midwest. It did have out ahead of it some stronger flow that delivered quite a bit heavy rainfall. It's kind of amazing to see this. It would have been midwinter. This would have been some absolutely epic lake effect snowfall amounts coming around that trough. Other than that, some scattered showers over parts of the southwest and this low that's going to be moving its way through the Pacific Northwest into Montana, Wyoming as we work our way into tomorrow and into the weekend. But we're going to see how much farther into the Midwest we do press the moisture from this one. I'll show you that in a second. But here's the map. If you got my morning report, you saw this early this morning, but this is the map that was updated at 3 o'clock this afternoon, showing total precipitation from Hurricane Ian. And just a reminder about Ian, some of the earlier forecast tracks took this north of Tampa. Of course, that was going to be the scenario that would just put so much water in Tampa Bay that we would be looking at, just a truly disastrous amount of storm surge in Tampa Bay. We even saw forecasts before that bringing it farther to the north, and even before that possibly taking it right in through here. And one of the big reasons for the shift, we talked about this on Monday, was the presence of that broader front that was sweeping through this area. And comparing that to the upper level steering winds, the front seemed to have a greater effect. That's kind of it in a nutshell. So it ended up turning, hitting south of Sarasota, and cutting across Florida. The very good thing about it, believe it or not, was that the hurricane did pick up some forward momentum as it went across Florida. Rather than sitting and spinning for 12 to maybe 18 hours, it moved relatively quickly. And I'm very thankful for that, because even though the rainfall totals in here are between 1 and 2 feet in total precipitation, it could have been worse. Now, throughout the day today, we've seen lots of pictures of the debris. We've seen, how bad the rainfall has been and the wind damage, but it'll still be several weeks before we get an idea about this. But my current estimate, based on what I've seen, is this will go down as one of the more expensive weather disasters to ever hit the United States. So we'll see how this all just evolves here as the reports continue to come out. I would like to show you what it looked like on satellite, though, an absolutely breathtaking image. So take a look at this one. The video you're watching here is from the Sierra program with NOAA, and it is 1-minute satellite data showing you yesterday when the hurricane made landfall. And it's just truly amazing to see the eyewall replacement cycle that allowed this to strengthen rapidly. Maximum wind speeds, according to National Hurricane Center, got up to 155 miles an hour. That's 1 mile an hour short of becoming a Category 5 strength hurricane. And it did do a tremendous amount of damage along the coast with its storm surge. And I'm sure many of you have seen a lot of the videos of what that storm surge looked like. But it's just a breathtaking bit of satellite data here showing you the circulation around this hurricane as the sun was setting last night. And as I said, thankfully it moved relatively quickly from this point forward, going and getting out there just off the coast of Florida today. So here's the latest satellite data. This was this evening here. And you can see the circulation as it kind of rock back and forth here at the end of the day. Very tight circulation here, but it's opened up. The main convection's out ahead of this. And this was part of the signal we were watching for to see if this system was going to weaken. Now, in this morning's report, for those of you that receive it, I agreed with the National Hurricane Center at that point that we thought this would stay at tropical storm strength, but they revised things at their 11 a.m. update, and what they're now looking at is that it could strengthen back to a Category 1 strength hurricane. Let's see if they got a new update on this. This was, okay, the 5 p.m. update now has it back up to Category 1 in strength, as you can see here, and it's expected by tomorrow afternoon to make landfall right around here in South Carolina coast. So there is now a hurricane warning that's been posted for the whole South Carolina coast. So let's take this information and kind of see what to expect in terms of hazards. First map I'm going to show you here is maximum accumulated wind gusts from the ECMWF. So we could get right along the shore wind gusts that are in that 75 to 80 mile an hour range, possibly even higher. And we're going to carry the 60 mile an hour wind threat pretty far inland into South Carolina and North Carolina. Now, this is a critical time of year to be delivering such strong winds, given the crops grown here, everything from peanuts and cotton to corn and soybeans and other crops. This late in the year will be a true test of the stand of those crops, and I imagine we're going to see quite a lot of crop damage here. Those winds are also going to push pretty hard on shore, and that's why the National Hurricane Center has changed this around to show. In fact, let's see if this has been updated as well. Okay, here's the new 5 p.m. update, and we can see they've maintained the 4 to 7 feet of storm surge right in through here. That could really cause quite a bit of damage along the coast as well. On the total precipitation side of it, this is a forecast from now all the way through Tuesday afternoon. And there's the possibility right along the coast of 7 to 10 inches of rain, according to most models. And a broad sector here across parts of the Carolinas getting into the mid-Atlantic and up against the Appalachian Mountains that are looking at 3 to 6 inches of total accumulated rainfall. What's important about this change in the trajectory, so again, the storm doing this, is that it has really pushed this line where the heaviest rain will extend to farther and farther to the east. So earlier in the week, there was a lot of discussion about flooding in Georgia, especially in the cotton crop down here in the south, hitting during harvest time here in Tennessee and Kentucky. But now this is all pressing much closer to the Appalachian Mountains and much more of a factor for the Carolinas as we go forward. All right, thinking about all of that, I want to step up and start to extend this discussion more to what the rest of the country is going to be seeing after we're done focusing on Ian. And this animation really kind of tells us a lot. So the first thing I'm watching is here's the short wave that's going to initiate more precipitation for the western plains, really the northwestern plains. So coming into Montana, Wyoming, and then the western sides of the Dakotas and Nebraska. But behind it, you can see 1, 2 rather deep troughs of low pressure that are kind of stacked up here, from the Bering Sea and then into the Gulf of Alaska. And what we always watch for this time of year is what the jet stream, actually this is any time of year, but what the jet stream is doing in this area. What I'm looking for here is any hint of a block, any massive ridge that can form. And in the near term, I'm not seeing that, which is helping me think that the momentum is going to pick up here in the North Pacific. So let's kind of put that into context here. First of all, we got to get the first couple systems out of the way. So can we just go right now and look at the high-res models? And what we're going to see here, this is from the 12Z European model. We're going to play out through Friday and get into Saturday. Now, as we work our way through Friday into Saturday, you see here that that Ian pulls into the Appalachian Mountains, delivering its heavy rainfall. So we could already start to see some clearing by the time we get into Saturday morning for parts of South Carolina and Georgia. But it's going to sit here and spin. And to the north of it, there's a large area of high pressure that's sitting right here. Now, the flow around this high pressure cell is in this direction, which is what's helping to spread Ian's moisture back out, leaving it lingering there. But because Ian is here, the front that's going to sweep through the country out ahead of this low is not going to have a deep pull on moisture coming out of the Gulf of Mexico. It's all kind of the wrong configuration. You'd want to put that high down here, but Ian's in the way. So if that high was here, then yes, we would open this up and see a lot of rainfall. But instead, you'll see that through Saturday, watch this, going out into Sunday, that low struggles to really draw in deep moisture. The high pressure cell is over parts of eastern Ontario. And as a result, we're going to see limited chances for precipitation along this boundary. So as that front comes through next Tuesday and Wednesday, there will be scattered showers along it. But the total amount of rainfall is relatively limited. So as we go out there past the 5th into the 6th, this is the high pressure cell that I am watching very carefully right now. I'm going to show you how it gets there and why we're watching it. Because starting on the 6th through the 8th, that high pressure cell out ahead of it's going to be dropping quite a bit of cold air into the northern plains, the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and eventually New England. It's going to be cold and dry. And as a result of that, we're going to possibly see another frost event, which again would be quite early for this time of year. Most folks in this area have a frost in mid-October. This is at the end of the first week of October. As that high pulls in, it will pull moisture back around the backside, so more precipitation for the Four Corners states out of this. But overall, that's about all we're watching here over the next 7, 8, 9 days. If we just look at the total amount of precipitation expected from now until next Thursday morning, this is what we've got. You'll see a broad sector from Texas into parts of the Midwest, down into parts of the South that are not expected to see much rainfall. Because of the jet stream trajectory so far north, not much for California either. And all that you see up here kind of moving across the open northern prairie, which is not much rainfall. I mean, these totals are relatively low. It's just from that one system that's starved for moisture. Now, let's compare this to the GFS. And we see very similar performance. There are differences, of course. But when we subtract one from the other, the European model showing wetter in these colors, the GFS showing wetter in these, you can start to see that overall, once again, and this is a common theme, the European is the wetter of the two models. Now I'm going to take you back to where I started this conversation though, and that is what's going on in the North Pacific jet. Well, you see, I've been showing you these graphics quite a bit. It's this great website from State University of New York at Albany, where the researchers here are looking at what they call the NPJ, the North Pacific Jet. They want to know if it's shifted north or south, if it's extended, or if it's retracted back toward Japan. And as we talked about last time, there was a movement away from an equator shift and a retraction back toward maybe a more normal extended jet like we would expect to see. And so what I want to watch here is what this means in terms of the upper level heights. So this is where kind of the meat of what I want to tell you about is going to happen today. As we play this forward through Friday into Saturday, this is what's left of Ian. This is the cutoff low that's moving here, the one that's starved for moisture. But overall, the jet stream runs pretty far to the north, and you'll see the reflection of that in the temperatures. As we play into the weekend, what I'm keeping a close eye on is this. You see, the jet stream is going over to a pattern that's showing some really high amplitude. See that? And what I'm curious about is if this ridge will break over the top of this trough. And if that occurs, what that does to kind of start to issue in after the 5th and 6th, much colder air to kind of run through the Canadian prairie and come down into the central part of the United States. So today's operational run mimics what we saw in the ensembles early. It mimics what we also saw in the previous runs. And you can almost see the type of break we're getting here. See that? That's that high over low pattern. That is a block if it lasts 7 to 10 days. So I'm not going to call it a block because it isn't, but it is a blocking type of pattern. What it's going to do though is look at this. This is the 6th. After we go out there past the 7th, 8th, and 9th, The Pacific jet has a northward shift to it. It's picking up momentum and sending that colder air, as you see here, on the 7th, 8th, and 9th through the Canadian Prairie into the northern tier of the United States. Now, this time of year, that's the only place we can get cold air from. You can't get it coming from a trough over like the Hudson Bay, because if that that air has to go over the Great Lakes, they're too mild. There's too much moderation there. So what I'll be watching for carefully is what this does for two things. If we extend the Pacific jet, get it going fast, leaving it blocked in the subtropical region, does this start to deliver more rain? And two, does it deliver cooler temperatures? On the precipitation side of it, most of week 2 is still drier for a lot of folks. But I think we're going to start to see a ramp up in systems coming into the Northwest, coming across the northern tier of the United States. So I guess my main focus here is if you look out over the next 2 weeks, you see that most of this is from the system coming this weekend. Other than that, we're drier across a broad section of the country, and this is Ian. If conditions are right where you are to harvest, my only encouragement would be to get the preparations and get everything going. And I want to make a case for why I think the second half of October is going to have a different look than the front half, okay? And first, I would like to tell you a bit more about the temperatures in the near term before I give you that discussion. Now, we still have for tomorrow morning, this whole region in through here where there is frost and freeze warnings. This is all tropical storm warning with a hurricane warning along the coast. We have red flag warning behind that, air quality issues around the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, down here near Austin and San Antonio. So this is kind of our all hazards map. We did have a frost event, multiple frost events that have come through this area. And in my morning reports, I kind of put those maps to show you where they are, and I'll update that tomorrow for those of you that get that report. But what you notice here is that still this morning we had a frost event here, and we're still looking at some cooler temperatures over the next couple of days pulling through New England. Now, after that, watch the temperatures attempt to moderate. So we've already seen today's highs. Just amazing to think that there were parts of Montana that were 20 degrees warmer than parts of Florida today. So here comes that wave tomorrow through the Intermountain West over the central and northern Rockies, and it's going to emerge on Saturday here. Out ahead of it, warm air. Cooler air here, all driven by cloud cover and rainfall. Notice the west starts to warm back up quickly as the ridge builds in. But this particular system struggles to advance cold air. It struggles to advance moisture into this area. So through Monday into Tuesday, the midsection of the country sees near normal temperatures. The west heats up under the ridge that's building there. And a lot of this, again, is remnant of Ian, cloud cover and cooler temperatures due to rain-soaked ground. Now, it's after the 5th of Wednesday that I think there's going to be a sizable change in the temperatures here. And what's interesting is the ensembles are not hinting at it too much. This is that 5-day sliding window. This took us out from the 1st of October to the 6th of October. So see the pattern I just described to you? Now let's skip ahead, and I want to get out there from when let's go another couple days. There we go. This would now be the 5th of October to the 10th. And what I think is going to happen during that time period is there's going to be a pretty sizable shot at some cooler air that comes through here that's not currently being reflected in the ensemble average temperature anomalies. And even though you see it kind of opening back up to more warmth after that, I do believe we're going to get this shot of cooler air. Let's just call it the 7th, 8th, and 9th right in through this area. Now, what's interesting is when I went out there and looked at the probability of getting a low below 40 degree Fahrenheit, so that's a low in the 30s, you will see out here that when we get into next Thursday morning here, and then next Friday morning there, that's a broad sector across the northern tier of the United States centered on the Great Lakes that has a 50 to 80% chance of having a low in the 30s. And if we go from the 7th out there to the 8th, we see that just moving as it normally does over to the northeast. So I just want to let folks know there's another chance for a frost event at the end of next week. From here, this is where we broaden this out and give you the longer term discussion and talk a little about South America. La Niña, again, it is strengthening. It's very strong right now, in fact. We're seeing the ocean temperatures continue to cool and the trade winds continuing to race in this area. So we then say, all right, we're finishing September, going into October, November. What does that historically mean? Well, let's blow this up a little bit, and I'm going to show you the first graphic. For October and November, I've correlated the ocean temperatures right here in the Central Pacific with the temperature pattern we've historically had. Now, you got to do a little bit of an adjustment here. This is a correlation, which means when the waters are warm, where you see the warm colors, it's warmer than normal. When the waters are warm, where you see the cool colors, it's cooler than normal. We don't have that right now. We have cool water in the Central Pacific. So the cooler colors represent warmer conditions. The warmer colors represent cooler. I wish they had a button that would allow me to just reverse the color bar. I'm sorry for this. So what we see is that during October and November, we often get more shots at cooler air that come into the northern tier of the United States. But across this section, we tend to see more warmer days than cooler days. On the precipitation side of this, let's just flip it over and look at that map. This next map here is going to make a little bit more sense because the negative correlation means wetter and the positive correlation means drier because we have a La Niña. Overall, we tend to be wetter in the northwest. It tends to extend at times in northern plains, but drier in this area that I'm kind of drawing for you here. So what we need to do here is we need to go out and look at what La Niña is doing and how it's going to influence this pattern. And I got to start you where we always do. The trade winds are still screaming in here. This is about as healthy of a La Niña picture I can give you in fall. Westerly wind bursts in the Indian Ocean, strong trade winds racing across, this pocket here of the Pacific, and a lot of rising motion right here. MJO phases 5, maybe even phase 6. Now what's important about that is that we talked about on Monday, the MJO is likely going to move out into phase 5. Now, I know you see the forecast taking it over into phase 6. I'd like to just make a modification, and I could definitely be wrong on this. But if these trade winds stay like they are, it's going to pop out into phase 5 and likely do something like this and stay there again. Only time will tell if I've got this right, but I'm just going to make a case here that if these trade winds maintain their strength, it just keeps pushing the MJO back over phase 5. Now, this is where I'm going to kind of complete this story on why I think the second half of October is going to look differently than the way September has ended and October is going to begin. It all begins with this. Now, you remember on Monday we looked at this? We were expecting stronger jet stream coming off of Asia. We were expecting at times troughs of low pressure coming in to the Pacific Northwest. Yes, we may block this up by at times flipping this ridge and this trough. That could happen. That's normal progression of a pattern. But overall, I think the momentum is going to be maintained pretty far to the north, pulling systems into the northwest and pulling them across the country. That makes sense historically. It makes sense with the kinematics of the flow of the wind and dynamically with what's going on. And so that's why when we look out there from mid-October to mid-November, we see more systems coming through the northwest, and we no longer have that strong, dry signal in the midsection of the country. Now, one of the reasons why that's there in this map is because the ensemble spread is so large that it averages out to 0. And so what that means here is that the models do not have a good handle on this. So that's where we're just saying if the MJO is going to do what we think it's going to do and La Niña is going to dominate, I think we're going to see an early start to the wet season across the west, specifically Northern California to coastal Oregon and Washington, and systems will pull through the United States. That seems to be a consistent theme with this overall. Now, what about the effect of this on South America? Because we've been dealing with extensive drought problems in Argentina. You can see here the latest root zone soil moisture map showing how very dry things have been in Argentina. We've had better moisture along a stalled out front right in through this part of south central Brazil. We've had the start of the monsoon really kick in and deliver some rain, and that's why planting progress in Mato Grosso is currently ahead of schedule. But the big questions are, how does this all evolve in the near term? Because that front's still stalled there. We do see a little bit of drier air. This is normal. The monsoon just doesn't come on and stay on. It kind of starts and in fits, whatever. But still, no indications that we're going to completely slow it down and stop it. But the dryness along the Paraná River and south in Argentina just continues to be a major issue. Now, why we have to think about this is because the new long-range European data suggests that that's going to be a problem all the way through mid-November. Will we have better rains north? Yeah, this will help progress the planting progress along just fine above normal. But this drought risk scenario in the south is, well, I think it's elevated in a big way. We're already having problems. Let me show you what we're talking about. So using the Argentinian Meteorological Service, I went in here to Buenos Aires, just one of the major growing areas just outside of it. And you can see the effect of that drought just building up a sizable deficit in precipitation. We can zoom in here. Let's go over toward, little jumpy there, but let's go over toward Cordoba. That's a big producing area as well. And as we click on that, let's see if it updates here. There you go. You can also see the major deficits in rainfall. So this would be a lack of spring rainfall, and it's been cold there at times as well. So this is really setting up for a pretty poor situation to start the growing season. How about over to Santa Fe, another very important growing area? You can see that even though they were wetter about a month ago, lately things have been quite dry. So this means this long-range forecast, where they're continuing to see drought issues in Argentina, could really hamper the start of the growing season and not get it off on a good foot. And I just want to bring that to all of your attention. So we come back to how long does this particular pattern, which I think is controlling U.S. weather and South American weather, last? And we do note that the CFSV2 has been very consistent with an increase in the strength of La Niña here over the next several weeks, possibly reaching a peak some point in October, November. But nearly every model forecast I've seen from everybody, all weather forecasting groups, continue to suggest that by late next winter and spring, we will see this La Niña start to fall apart. I told you this before, but I'll just bring it up really quickly. This will first be told in a story here. When these trade winds break up, that will be the first signal that La Niña is starting to fade. I got to see about 2 to 3 weeks of them completely shutting down. That's when the atmosphere will start its adjustment. So why I bring this up is for one kind of important point. La Niña, to start the winter, will likely deliver a lot of cooler air to the northern tier of the United States and even into the midsection of the country. Could we keep the southwest warmer and the southeast warmer? Sure, that's very typical of La Niña. But as it breaks, this temperature pattern for the second half of the year will be controlled by subseasonal events, no longer by La Niña. So that's progression of the MJO. That is the polar vortex. And those tend to change at week by week rather than over month by month. So the last thing I'll leave you off with here is this. This is what we're going to be looking at once we really get into winter, but I'm going to bring it up now. It is the strength of the polar vortex. And just a reminder, when you look historically at those winds, let's just look at this graphic. Average wind speed is here, deep in the stratosphere. Whenever the polar vortex is strong, like it was last year, that's the blue line, we tend to limit the duration and extent of cold air. Whenever the polar vortex is weaker than normal down here, it tends to let go of that cold air and it comes plunging, usually to North America or Europe. And this is a year, given what we know going on right now with energy, not only here but in Europe, that a weakened polar vortex would be devastating, okay? So where is it right now? Well, it's forecast to be a little bit weaker than normal. So what we want to watch out for is if it stays down here. And what I'm saying is if La Niña lets go, then the polar vortex can take a more front row in the forecasting. The MJO will take a more front row in the forecasting. And all these subtle features in the North Atlantic and North Pacific will be the primary forecasting drivers, meaning that winter will be not very easily predicted once La Niña lets go. So I'll leave you with that, and we'll talk again next week. Thank you.